What? No, that can't be how it ends. You don't just spend all that time building up to some grand reveal to have that be... What? So we're gonna have to break from the usual format here, on account of the fact that everything great about My Friendly Neighborhood, MFN for short, is in the spoiler-free first half, and then promptly afterwards, the bed defecating, dog ripping up the couching, absolutely baffling second half is full of spoilers. Already this game is a seriously disjointed mess to make sense of, because I spent my first 2 to 4 hours or so thinking this might be one of my top 10 games of the year, and then spent the next few wondering where everything went horribly wrong. It's complicated. Too long didn't read. MFN is the tale of Gordon O'Brien, a repair technician sent to the old MFN building on account of it suddenly broadcasting so intensely it's dominating the airwaves with old reruns of its puppet show. Soon you bump into Ricky, a talking sock who discourages you from going forward, and then from there, the rest of the puppets other than Ricky start trying to friendly you to death. And that's the ideal circumstance. As you delve deeper into the surrealist landscape making up the studio backlot, you'll face some genuinely effective PG-rated scares. Make no mistake, this is a game aimed at both classic survival horror fans and kids, which is a unique balancing act. Think of it as a hybrid of BioShock, Resident Evil 4, and The Evil Within, just with absolutely no blood other than on a single character's texture in the early parts of the game. And even then, I think they might be trying to imply that it just looks like blood and is simply paint, but I think that's left up to interpretation. There's no human bodies, no dismemberment, and no sadistic serrated teeth like Poppy's playtime. Instead, all the bite comes from the fact you've only 4 hit points and every puppet hits like a heavyweight champion. Melee is so risky, it's more pointless than a quilted glove, so you'll be relying on improvised weapons made from writing equipment, like an alphabet pistol and typewriter shotgun. There's a third gun I wasn't able to find, doubtless locked behind the game's many optional side quests. All this works exceptionally well at first. You've got keys to find, puzzles to solve, limited save tokens that double as health refresh tokens, and even an attaché case for managing your inventory. So much of this works flawlessly that you'll blaze through the opening hours like it's an old favorite. And I really don't want to spoil too much, but I do love how more unique puppets can be nullified if you help them out with their problems. It's unprompted, but definitely useful. I also like that the difficulty is far more player-driven than just raw numbers, since it's up to you whether to take notes and maps or leave them where you found them, as well as what items to prioritize. Several puzzles are also just hidden in plain sight very well. And speaking of sights, visually the game is a treat, though there are some weird collision issues here and there, one of which I can't show until we get to the spoiler portion of the video, but thankfully these were fairly rare. That said, the sound design and vocal performances are perfect. Seriously, everyone nails their lines and the majority of the animation work is stellar as well.
Raise the curtain! Bring up the lights! The neighborhood is coming to town!
Hello. I'm here to disconnect the antenna.
Television's heartbeat has returned. A spirit of cheer, bright...
Hey there, kids! I live in your TV set. That's right, it's the strangest place to be. Inside of your TV, I can see wires and chips and a big, big tube running right to the back. What do I eat? Oh, I eat the channels that you never watch. One by one, they fall prey to my jaws. Nom, 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 nom. But here, I'll tell you what. How about you give me some of that cereal in your bowl right now? How? Oh, just get me out of here. That's right, grab your dad's toolbox.
Even if the tight budget can be seen, you glaze over it with just how solid the rest of the presentation is. The animations are really well done, even with a few unintended wrinkles. The problem is, eventually the well-choreographed progression and engaging enemies give way to a much more elaborate scavenger hunt that all but kills the pacing for the final act, paired with spoilers that we're going to get into. Skip to here to avoid them. Ready? Okay. Starting in 3, 2, 1. So you're expecting some dark, twisted reveal for the story, right? Discount Jim Henson is secretly a Lovecraftian abomination or something. The puppets are the souls of the staff, trapped forever. Nope! In fact, there's no explanation for a lot of things, at least from what I could find, and what is explained is, well, it's just kinda dumb, for lack of a better way to put it, and I really don't like using that word because I actually feel that dumb is a particularly condescending way to describe things, but it did not feel like a way to tie this all together with a clever little bow, and if anything was overly saccharine. Turns out the evilest thing you can do to these Muppets is to let them watch HBO, and then they turn evil from confusion. I wish that wasn't the explanation. It's so absurd that just even if I'm operating within the concept of this just being somehow a first-person shooter episode of the Muppets, it's really weird and out of left field. The story gets really preachy by the end too. It doesn't help that the final boss broke for me to the point that it was a trivial game of hide and seek instead of an epic all-out battle either. Apparently it's a choice whether or not to kill it. I didn't even realize. I figured it was just something that would infinitely endure whatever I threw at it, and that was just supposed to hide. It's weirdly sloppy. If I'm being honest, most of what happens here at the very end with the unfriendly neighborhood should have been sprinkled throughout the main game with more foreshadowing and maybe incorporating the nasty bits here and there to really ratchet the tension every now and then to close out chapters. And your final decision also should have taken place at the antenna, not after you've gone through all of that, because it's just really weirdly paced otherwise. You're expecting maybe that there's going to be a whole extra act of gameplay only for it to end in minutes, fighting a boss that doesn't follow really any of the mechanics that you've engaged with beforehand except for the most basic. I can't help but feel like this was some undercooked section, that there was meant to be more here, and for some reason it just doesn't happen. It really speaks to why so many games in this whole kids horror genre work in episodes. When you have that first episode and you can hear people's theories and you can hear their impressions, you can gauge from that and learn from that and focus in. Whereas this is a one and done experience, and really, it feels like as if it's just 2 episodes that got put together and one was really not ready to ship, while one was absolutely ready to knock things out of the park. I would have been so happy if they had just delayed the second half for a bit to make sure that it was properly polished, made sense, and delivered a satisfying conclusion. I don't really see why this had to have this narrative. It's very John Carmackian in that respect. It really feels like the story purely exists in service to ensuring that we can keep going along with this. And that's weird because the presentation would suggest that the story is what we're here for. If it had just been a slight drop in scenario quality, or if they really had to include those damn dogs that get up every few seconds, regardless of if you've left the room or not, I could at least just explain it away as a rush to the finish line. But the plot itself is just really weird. I mean, at one point, Ricky even kind of just sort of vanishes for a really long time, only to reappear well after you'd think that he would have had a reason to show up. I don't know if they were just trying to let the player off the leash to do whatever they wanted, but it's just such a weird thing then to throw in a new enemy type that discourages that. It's just a mess, and it's a shame because it's tight as a drum for that entire first half. I really can't overstate that. These weapons are fantastic, the presentation is rock solid. I was having fun. I was really engaged. There's some really good examples of how to get the fundamentals of survival horror right. There's even good replay value thought through with post-campaign cheat codes and alternate play modes like a speedrunning mode and a free cam mode that you unlock with collectible VHS tapes. And that gives you even more incentive to find everything and explore. There's a ranking system like with Resident Evil games. In so many ways, it manages to nail what it should do, that when it stumbles, it's so immediate and potent that it just saddens me because I was really rooting for MFN. I can't pretend that at the end of the day I was unsatisfied, but I also wasn't as satisfied as I should be. This could have been the one to stand tall alongside all the horror remakes and new IPs dropping this year. We've had a glut of great horror, and this, going by the first half alone, deserves to be held up amongst those. I just really would have preferred if it actually stuck the landing. Instead, much like its puppets that's constantly trying to hug you to death, it flops over itself a bit too often.